To make the snakeskin, I've got a regular piece of bubble wrap. I'm using the Ryobi heat gun to warm it up, and then the side of my thumb to squish down some of the bubbles and rip a few of the cells open, giving it a really authentic look. Piece of tissue paper, crumpled and then flattened back out again, and regular paint. I'm just going to add a thin layer across the tissue paper. I don't want to fill it in completely. I want to leave some areas that are somewhat transparent where you can see through the tissue paper. What colors of paints you decide to use is totally up to you. I wanted to go for a green looking snakeskin, so I'm using a mixture of a metallic green, a dark silver, and then an opalescent to create different shadows and highlights and give it that great color. Next, I'm going to use the heat gun again to kind of flatten out the bubbles a little bit more, as well as a fun thing that happens when you use the heat gun is some of the bubbles start to refill with air, giving it a really, really cool texture. You can kind of see it here as I do it a little bit slower, how they start to fill back up. Using a spray adhesive, I'm going to spray a thin layer on the part of the tissue paper I painted and then glue the bubble wrap to the top of it. Then using the opalescent paint, I'm going to go in and just highlight a few of the areas around the edges. I want to leave some transparent areas so it really starts to look like the transparent parts of snakeskin. Next, I'm going to flip it over and taking this little meshy bag that I got from the grocery store, stretch it all out, and then using the spray adhesive once more, I'm going to adhere it to the back side of the tissue paper. So we've got the mesh on one side and the bubble wrap on the other. Going back in with the paints, the silver and the opalescent metallic, I'm going to start to create stripes in the paper. The heat gun again is great for speeding up the paint drying process. You can really see the texture starting to come through. Now we're going to start cutting up our snakeskin. I've gone in and I've made a few wider sections first, not really worrying too much about thickness or shape of strips, just more that it has kind of a natural, organic, and wavy texture. Once I've got the strips all cut, I'm going to cut off the unpainted parts and start cutting them down into more random shapes. Now the magic happens. Start to crinkle that stuff up. Wrap it around, loop it around your finger. It will really start to come alive. I can't get over how realistic the mix of the bubble wrap and the mesh with the tissue paper looks. Next up is creating the potion bottle. This is definitely my favorite part. I've got a few vases I picked up from the dollar store, and the first thing I'm going to do is use a regular glue stick to get the labels that I've designed adhered to the glass. The glue stick will hold it in place until I'm ready to do a thin layer of Mod Podge over the tops of the labels. This is definitely my favorite part because I'm only limited by what I can design, bits of paper I can find, things that I come across at the craft stores or at vintage sales. It really makes it unique to the person that's making the potion bottle as well as making the potion display. Once everything's stuck in place, I'm just going to set that aside and move on to making a stopper for the potion bottle. Big corks are expensive, so I am going to make a stopper. I found some styrofoam at the dollar store and had a piece of scrap contact paper that looks kind of like black leather. I started by making a circle and cutting notches in it all the way around, sort of like the hands of a clock. What this will do is make it easier to wrap around a round object. By starting on one side and pulling the tabs up and tight and around the foam, it's going to give it a nice smooth effect. I've also cut a circle for the top, and then I'm going to repeat the process by cutting notches all the way around and then folding them in onto the top of the foam and hot gluing them into place. Okay, can we just pause real quick and just talk about how awesome this little glue gun is? Like, I get that Ryobi sent me some things to test out and kind of show you guys, but like, I'm obsessed. Just pop the battery in. This is the on-off switch. This shows that it's kind of cradled down there in that little plug properly. And then it has this little spot to catch the glue. Isn't that great? Anyways, so very excited. I'm going to use that to finish off these potion jars, just with the lid that I'm making for the one, and then the embellishments. So I've cut little notches, and then I'm going to use the glue gun to finish off the foam lid for the glass bottle, just by folding them in again like little tabs, and then I'm going to glue the top piece, the top circle that I cut, to the top of the stopper. By pressing it down into the glass jar pretty hard, it's nice because it will create a little ridge in the stopper, which gives it a super authentic look. So I'm going to set that aside for now, and I'm going to add a thin layer of Mod Podge that's matte to any of the places where I've applied a label. That's just going to adhere them to the glass permanently. I'm also going to use a little bit of the silver paint to just add some embellishments to the outside of the glass. Again, the heat gun is great because it speeds up the painting process, so I don't have to wait so long in between adding layers. Now it's time to fill her up and finish doing all the embellishments. I've got a little bit of moss, and then I'm going to just start crinkling and rolling and twisting the snakeskin in layers. I'm going to add a little bit of moss in the center just because it gives it some volume without having to put so much of the snakeskin in there, as well as make it look even more authentic. Just to add a little bit of extra fun, I've got a plastic snake from the dollar store. I'm going to paint it with some of the bright green paint, and then use a little bit of baker's twine and the hot glue gun again to wrap some cord around the top of the stopper that I made. Once that's all finished up, I'm going to add the snake to the top of the jar stopper and really give it kind of a fun 3D effect. And there you go, witches and wizards, a new potion jar, beautifully made and filled with snakeskin, ready for all your potion making.